Good morning, everybody. We're just getting we just started the live stream, and I'm going to get that shared on our Facebook page so that people that can't be here today can watch and things like that. But we're excited for our open forum. I'm going to give this to Ryan and Eric, and then Josh went somewhere. There's Josh. Josh will have a mic. Because we're live streaming this, we'll be running a couple mics around so that if you have a question, make sure that you have the microphone before you ask it, just so that we can make sure that those that are listening online can hear it. So the purpose of the open forum today is to give financial updates, hear about the next steps, ask questions, and understand the process. And of course, get excited. And so I just am starting it while the live stream goes. I'll hand it off to you.
So I'm Ryan Fleming with Gas Construction, for those who don't know me. I think we'll just give a rough background on schedule and current budgets of what we're looking at for the project. And then maybe somebody can talk about the financial, like where we're currently at with fundraising and everything. So currently, we recently have given the architect the go-ahead to finish the design for the addition and some miscellaneous remodeling throughout the church. We had a meeting last Wednesday on that with Pastor Andrea, myself, John Lowry, and the design team. So they're going to get into that and work through plans and bring that along over the next few months. We hope that that'll be done in time where we can get this job out to bid in the spring, most likely sometime in May. We'll get the job out for bid, and when those bids come in, that's when we'll know the actual final cost of everything. And we can kind of circle up and have another meeting at that time to vote on, which alternates are priority for people and what things we want to do within the church. We're going to have several options. The main focus is tearing down the Hauge wing and putting a new addition up there. Focus number 2 will be a separate bid for finishing off the interior of that new addition. And then there's going to be an alternate to do a classroom, kind of this upper classroom renovation, kind of update more finishes and stuff in that area, and also some stuff within the fellowship hall, maybe removing some coat closets and just kind of updating the fellowship hall area. The 2 other pieces of this that we've done already, we did a re-roof the church. There was a big donation from Herzog Roofing on that to provide a $175,000 donation for the roofing. So we got the whole church re-roofed, did some asbestos inspections, patched water damage areas, and that was all done for about $18,000. So that was a pretty big deal for the church. The other piece of it is the HVAC renovation. That's been fully designed, and I believe after the annual meeting, we'll be ready to give the go-ahead to order equipment and get that going. So that would take place, if equipment comes in time, that would take place this spring, but there's some pieces on some units that currently don't work that we're going to start picking away at and getting some of that started sooner than later. I guess cost-wise, I'll run through a couple kind of where those budgets are. As I mentioned, the re-roofing portion got done for $18,000. The HVAC renovation is about a $900,000 piece, and the addition shell is $1.1 million is what that's projected to be at. So these extra fit-up areas will kind of be above and beyond the $2 million scope we're currently looking at, so we'll see how those numbers come in. Do you want to talk about the donations a little bit, where we're at with that? Do you have that information?
I have some of it, and you have some of it too. Just to elaborate on what Ryan said, so in addition to the roof work, we also did all the metal softening right around the sanctuary, and that's turned out really nice. It'll solve the woodpecker issue on this end. And then in the spring, I think they're going to come back and finish the metal softening over the doors. You guys have seen those over there. They're starting to rot, and it was all originally wood cladding, and so having the metal softening there will fix that. As far as the financial update, I know that we made it through both the loan committee at Valley and the overall board of directors at Valley. So we've been fully approved for the loan.
Is this working? Perfect. So we had the Above and Beyond campaign that we did for the last month and a half, and we were asking for about $313,000 to come in. And between the gifts that have come in and other gifts that we know will be coming in, we hit about $383,000. So that was, thank you everybody for that. As far as the pledges, when we first asked for pledges from the congregation, we had about just short of $940,000 pledged, and through the end of 2024, we've received just shy of $500,000, so we're over 50% on the pledges coming in. Anything else?
I don't think so. So what that leaves us, do you know the balance in the now is the time? Or once we get, through the Above and Beyond, we'll have a cash on hand balance of?
So we're sitting at about $700,000 cash on hand.
So when we add the $700,000 cash on hand with the $1.4 million that we'll have from Valley Premier, that leaves us with about 2.1 in financing. So yeah, and we're here to just answer questions too about the project or about the process, like Ryan mentioned. The intent is to have the architects work through their process. That will involve meetings with the design team and the staff and the various stakeholders throughout the congregation, the different teams and so on and so forth to finalize design. We'll get the project bid. I think it'll be advertised for 3 weeks is what you typically do, right? So we advertise for 3 weeks, then we'll have an opening, and once we have all the numbers, we'll present them to the congregation to make those decisions. So they'll be the base bid, and then those alternates are choices, right? And we don't have to accept them in order. We can accept base bid and alternate number 3. We can accept base bid and alternate number 1. We can accept base bid only, so we aren't tied to anything with those alternates. Those will be individual items that the congregation will be able to vote on.
And you said it's going to be what time frame for that vote?
Ideally, we get the project bid. We understand that our congregation kind of disperses right towards the end of May. So the goal is to get the project bid and voted before that Memorial Day weekend. It's going to be tough. I think with the design schedule, it's pretty tight. But ideally, I think in order to make sure that we get a quorum and meet what's required from a bylaw standpoint, we're going to really try and have that vote prior to Memorial Day weekend.
And then do you have an estimate of when construction will start, like the demolition of the Hauge Wing?
Yeah, so the plan right now is assuming that the bid passes and the vote passes and everybody's on board. VBS is the first week in June. Okay, so VBS is the first week in June, so we need that space for VBS. And then I think there's been some chatter from a staff standpoint that it would be a lot of fun to do a sort of tearing down as part of the end of VBS. Like we're going to close VBS and then there's going to be some sort of party to tear down the Hauge Wing to kind of close out VBS. So it would be that early June time frame if I'm capturing the emails correctly. And then I don't know if you want to speak to once demolition's done, then we'd go right into constructing that shell with the intent of probably having it, hopefully having it enclosed by winter, right?
Yeah, it would be enclosed. If it's the shell package, that would be enclosed before things get cold in the late fall, winter, and that would kind of wrap up the shell. And then if there were enough funds to get it fit up and totally finished on the inside, then that would continue into winter, probably go until February or something.
So the shell would be usable by Thanksgiving?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of depending on how far we take the finishes on the inside. We're kind of working through that right now. We want it to be a usable space so it can be used for classrooms or whatever. So we're kind of working through what's required with code-wise and how far we want to take that. So we're kind of working through that right now.
Yeah, to clarify too, if we accept any accept any fit-ups, right? That may complicate children's ministry in those spaces, right? So if we end up moving forward with finishing those spaces, construction may be ongoing then through the winter, or we will have the option most likely to say, okay, we're gonna get it enclosed and we will use it as unfinished space from, you know, October through May, and then in May, we will start the finishes. There'll be different options to explore at that point, whether or not the contractors would be willing to hold their pricing on the finishes to the following spring, or there will be coordination that would have to be required there, because we could either get it all done in one shot and go through till February, and at which case it may be challenging to have youth ministry in there, right, because there'll be construction ongoing, or we can pause construction and then pick it back up again the following spring. We'll have to see what options are available to us.
Say, Ryan, we've talked a lot over the last year about things like base bid, alternates, timeline, things like that. And just for everybody that is here and has been curious about that, could you just recap again what is included in base bid, or what portions are completed in base bid, and then overview, because we've talked a lot about alternates, but overview, first of all, what is base bid, and then a couple of the big alternates that we're talking about that for us as a congregation, as we think about the financials of this, what are some of the alternates that are really worth, and I know Eric and Rob, when you guys spoke in this in November, you did such a great job, but you know, what's the base bid, but then also what are some of these alternates that we really want the congregation to consider moving forward on? Thank you.
Okay, so base bid is to tear down the Hauge wing and build a new shell that's usable space for the church, but it's not completely fit up with all the interior walls, restrooms, classrooms, cabinets, that kind of thing. Alternate number one would be to fully finish that space, which would be completely usable classroom spaces, you know, with some cabinets, acoustical ceilings, carpet, paint on the walls, like 100% complete. Alternate number.
We think that adder's in that $500,000 range, right? We think
Correct.
It's going to be about $500,000 additional to fit up that shell.
And while you get on that, there's there's some grant funding available to help potentially pay for that portion. So there's some people working on a grant for that portion of it right now, but that'll be down the road before we know anything on that. Alternate number three is to redo the classroom spaces kind of right behind the sanctuary here, basically just update those. We'd tear out an existing bathroom in the nursery and build one wall. Other than that, it's just updating ceilings, lighting, paint, and flooring in that area. Alternate number three is to redo the space right behind the sanctuary here, remove the old coat closet area, and kind of update that space. And then we're going to have an alternate number four to update the fellowship hall, and we'd actually kind of wall off a section of it so we have with some big operable doors, so there's more flexibility in using that space out there for like medium-sized groups or whatever, depending on what the use is. Just give more options.
The motion that was made at the last annual meeting is just the base bid, right? As of now?
Correct. I think the motion was made to obtain a note for, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, obtain a note for $2 million. But I think before anything will move forward, there'd be another meeting and a vote before anything besides that base bid would be done.
Okay.
So I can read the motion, just so everybody remembers the motion. It's and it's also in the annual report here, just so you can see it. But the motion that was approved was a motion to approve a $2 million banknote for work to be done in the Hauge wing, as well as deferred maintenance. So that was the vote that was approved at last year's meeting. And so like what Ryan was just saying, it's not on any of the details of the work. That was a motion and a vote for financing so that we can move forward. So,
What was the estimate on that base bid?
On the base bid, the estimate was, it's right at, let me look here. I think about 1.2.
And then we have the 900,000 in HVAC, in the deferred maintenance piece of it as well. So we voted, so the deferred maintenance is that HVAC work in the roof. So that's roughly 900,000, and then we have about 1.1, 1.2.
1.15, yeah,
1.15.
for the addition, the shell addition.
So you're looking at a total like 2 to 2.1 million.
Yeah. Between the HVAC renovation, re-roofing, and that base bid addition shell, it would be like 2.1.
Can you just clarify with the bid, what space then is not accessible? Is it gonna be that middle hallway down to the Hauge wing will be inaccessible as well? Or that will be accessible for like children's ministry, teen ministry? Okay,
Yeah, the Hauge wing will all be accessible.
and it's only if we vote as an alternate that wouldn't be available, potentially.
Correct, and that area is a lot less.
Let's just wait till we get you a mic.
Just a second.
I can go over there too, or take this one. The construction requirements for updating that sort of central link is going to be a lot easier to navigate, right? They can come in and drop ceiling tiles in there in 2 days, and they can paint the floor. Like, we'll be able to navigate the construction in that area. That would require some coordination, but again, yes, it would also require an acceptance of that alternate by the congregation.
And then do you have estimates of cost for each of the alternates that you just explained? Because you talked about only one being $500,000, but what about the other ones?
I'll run through those again here. So right now, the estimate for, let's see, the addition shell is 1.15. Fitting up that shell space is $540,000. Remodeling the classrooms, kind of updating this classroom area, is about in the $150,000 range. And then the gathering fellowship hall is about at $100,000, depending on, and those areas aren't fully designed yet, they're just basic floor plans, so it kind of depends on where the design goes on some of that. They might go up, they might go down. And then when it all gets bid, that's when we'll know those final numbers. We'll put everything together in bid packages and bid everything out, like doors and windows, the carpentry work, the carpet. There'll be like 20 different bid packages. We'll bid everything out, and we'll get, usually on something like that, total we'll get probably 90 to 110 bids or so, somewhere in there for everything.
There is also, I think, a few gifts in kind remaining that will affect where the budgets fall on some of these items as they go out to bid. So we don't have all the details and the particulars on that yet, but we should see some savings, I guess you will, on some of those items as they come to bid as well. So I guess really the overarching thing when it comes to these alternates is, right, we have financing today for 2.1. We have a base bid in deferred maintenance today that equals roughly 2.1, right? So at any point, if the congregation wants to proceed with these alternates, it's going to require a financial commitment from the group, right, to come up with more, like a secondary pledge drive, a recommitment, that sort of thing, right? So something to keep in mind as we move through this is, yes, we can choose to spend that money, but that's kind of outside of our financing scope today. So a big thing to consider as we get down the road. We're in a really good place at the start to be able to cash flow due to the large cash balance on hand. We're in a good position to cash flow the early stages of this project, right? It'll allow the mechanical contractors to get their units on order. We have one pretty standard air handling unit, which is going to go in the fellowship hall. That's actually going to free up space moving forward now as well. Currently, that air handler sits in that room and hangs down, and we're moving it on the roof going forward. So from a chair, table standpoint, and a storage standpoint going forward, we're going to open up a lot of space there. However, we do have a fairly customizable unit that needs to go downstairs. If any of you guys have seen that air handler before, and if anybody wants to see it after, I'd be happy to take you down there. But it's the air handler that feeds the sanctuary, and it is down the stairs and then down another set of stairs, kind of near the tunnel or the link that connects these areas. So it has to be removed in pieces. They have to go down there basically with a Sawzall and an angle grinder and cut it out in pieces that can go through a 3-foot door. And then the unit has to be built in modular pieces so that it can be carried all the way down there and then reassembled inside that room. So we looked at possibly putting that unit up on the roof as well to save us all of that, but we don't have the space to get the air then back down into the basement to feed all the registers around the outside. So we did explore that. We were hoping to gain some savings from there, but ultimately we didn't have the space to get the air from the roof down into those existing ductworks. But that allows us, again, those items have significant lead times, 12 to 14 weeks, so we're able to let them get those ordered now so that we can be prepared when spring comes.
And all that mechanical stuff, the goal will be to get those units replaced during mild weather, so we don't have any heat or cooling problems. So.
Go ahead, Dave.
Most of you know me, so I'm going to talk about money. As we look at the project, we find out that we're going to have to borrow $1.4 million. Just perspective, the bank wants the interest paid monthly on that, which is what involves us. On the total loan, the interest for the year is about $90,000 a year. This gets to be about $7,500 a month that we have to come up with during this phase. And that's where we, again, the dollar amount of $2 million scares me. It's a big chunk. But I'm going to tell you that back in the year 2000, we put the Hauge addition on over here, which was grass at that time. The project came to $1,200,000. Now remember, this is in 2000. We made a fundraiser like what we're doing now. We got the amount of $700,000, so we borrowed $550,000. That's where we were at 20 years ago. Within 3 years, the congregation paid that loan off. So as we think about the $2 million here, even though the personality of our congregation is different because we have the older, dedicated people years ago, this is a big amount that we have to really look at. I think we can do it, not a problem, just that we're aware of what's coming up, and history has shown that it happened. We took care of it. So, and we always think of God takes care of us in mysterious ways, so that will happen. I think of we bought the lot over here just a few years ago. I think we had it for a couple of years. We borrowed $120,000. In 2 years, we only paid $5. So we had a $100,000 balance, which was strange. But you know what God did? He gave us a hailstorm. Our roof come to over $100,000. What did we do? We paid the loan off. So going forward, I know we have to be optimistic. We also just wanted you to, I'm a numbers guy, that's a bad thing, but where we're at and what's going to be our obligation as a congregation.
No, I really appreciate that, Dave. I think it's important for everybody to know. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get all the information out there. And that's hopefully, what I was alluding to is that we can cash flow this project at least in the early stages for some time before we have to start taking draws off the construction loan, right, to try and save us on those interest payments. So, but no, I think you're spot on. It's something that we all need to be aware of moving forward. questions? Okay, well, I'll stake around around the floor plans in the back if people want to see kind of on those floor plans where those alternates are and what they look like. We've got some nice images back there, so if there's questions on that, we can look at that there. But otherwise, the intent here really was to ask the questions now so that we don't have a 2-hour annual meeting. And in addition, because we don't really have any actionable items at the annual meeting at this point, right? We have the motion from last year to secure the financing, which we're moving ahead with, and we don't have any building bids to really accept right now. So that was kind of the intent of this, was to make clear where we're at with everything so that we can streamline the annual meeting as well.
As we wrap up, there's just so the congregation knows kind of what the planning process over the next, so every other week the NOW team is meeting, and this is all outlined in the annual report too, but every other week the NOW team is meeting on Wednesday nights, and just about things like communication and what the status is. And so we will be, and there's various teams within that team, or arms, if you will. And so the goal and the objective is to just really keep the congregation informed and communicate. There's an events and a communications team that will be talking about making sure that the letters and the information and the details get out. There's a building team, there's the financing team. So just the leadership surrounding this project is second to none, and just so exceptional, and it's been really well thought out and really well done. So thank you to all of you who have been on this team and been working on this for the last several years. It's been quite a process. But if you have questions, and it's every other Wednesday at 8:15, and the list of people who are on that team, so you know who to talk to, or at least who to go to with questions, and they can find the answers, is listed in the annual report as well. So just so everybody knows who you can talk to, where you can go for answers, there's a report from the NOW team in the annual